You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
I can ride my bike with no handlebars, no handlebars, no handlebars. I can ride my bike with no handlebars, no handlebars, no handlebars. Look at me, look at me.
One Hit Thunder producer Matt Kelly has brought up the band Flobots on several occasions on the show, so it was only right that an entire episode was finally dedicated to their 2008 single, Handlebars. What lyrically starts as basically, "Look ma, no hands," turns into an epic commentary on power, corruption, and militarism. Today, we'll dive even deeper into Flobots, and we'll decide if we jump the gun with the one-hit wonder tag on a band that might still lead the nation with a microphone.
No metronome, and I can see your face on the telephone, on the telephone, on the telephone. Look at me, just called to say that it's good to be alive in such a small world. I'm all curled up with a book to read.
One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed, and you can live off royalties forever. And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one hit thunder?
All right, Matt, can you ride a bike with no handlebars? You knew I was going to ask you.
The answer is no. So I have to tell you, I am so excited that this won the Patreon voting. And I'm going to throw a wild prediction at the start of this, and then I'm going to try to back up this prediction as we discuss further.
Wow.
I think that Flobots Handlebars, of all of the artists and songs that we've covered on this podcast, is the most likely artist that retrospectively people will say, no, they had another hit, because I don't think that the door has fully shut on the Flobots. I think that it is still possible for the Flobots to come out with a second big song for them.
Sure, why not? I see that they have some tour dates coming up. They're still at it. I see they play with cool bands. I think you could be right. I listen to some of their other music and it's good, but we are here to talk about Handlebars first and foremost.
Yes.
And I didn't really know this song. I mean, I recognized the melody. I definitely maybe heard it in passing, but I didn't really know it.
What did you think about it? Because I was thinking Chris is either going to absolutely hate this or this is going to be totally his type of shit.
I like it.
I was hoping you would. So here's the story with me and the Flobots. I would say for the last 20 years, maybe, I have not actively listened to the radio. It's always like my iPod or something on Spotify, or like I still have a CD disc drive in my car. Like very rarely am I putting on a radio station. But one day in 2008, I was in a rush and I forgot to grab my iPod and I was like, fuck. So I just put on the local rock station. This was one of the first songs that came on, and I caught it midway, and I thought it was a new song by Cake for a second because it had like a trumpet solo in it, and it was like this kind of monotone rapping. And then as the song kept going, I was like, no, I could see if whoever this is influenced by Cake, but this is clearly like a different band doing a slightly different type of thing. And ever since then, I have been a huge fan of this song and the band Flobots. And the more I thought, the song like came back up in my mind in the last year because of a YouTuber that I follow.
Logan Paul?
Yes, we'll get into the Logan Paul thing. No, a rapper, this guy, Rap Critic on YouTube, did a video that was also his Patreon suggested he do it, where he broke down all of the bars in the entire song. And he really kind of opened my eyes to like, this is a heavy fucking song if you look at the lyrics.
Yeah,
to
it goes from 0 to 60 for sure, or 0 to 200 by the third verse of this thing.
For sure.
I will say that this is a pretty unique song. Doesn't sound like anybody else. It does have elements of, Yeah, I'm not surprised you heard this on like a rock radio station because it has that certain production that does sound like it's going to be played on the X or the Edge or whatever your rock radio station is in your city. It does have that sound to it a little bit, but they also have a pretty unique thing.
Oh, 100%. And I love the hustle of this band. Like, so the Flobots started as an official band named the Flobots in 2005, but the main guy, Jamie Laurie, he actually started working on the concept of what this band would be way back in 2001 when he did like a, Scribblious Pip.
Scroobius Pip, yeah.
Yeah, Scroobius Pip. There's Scroobius Pip, and then there's also like he has a whole separate album that's him with a specific producer that has like the beat that my heart skipped is on that and stuff like that.
Dan Lasac.
Yes, so he had kind of a similar thing where it was like Jamie and Lax type thing, or Yeti, or I don't know what the dude's name was, but like it was him and a producer that put together this first album called Automatopoeia. That, like, all things considered, was the first Flobots album. It was just before he had gotten a band together and wanted to give it more of like he wanted it to be a band. He didn't want it to just be, I'm Jamie and this is my backup tour group. Like, and it has been the same, like, for the most part, it's been the same, like, drummer, guitarist, bassist, and violin player since he formed this band in like 2005. They've had like a couple other member shifts in and out, but it kind of reminds me of when the lead singer of Bright Eyes put out a solo album, and the reason was that he was like, everyone assumes that Bright Eyes is my solo project, but I've had the same backup band for the last 20 years, so I want it to like establish that they are in fact Bright Eyes as well, like it's not just me anymore. But they, put together a self-produced EP, toured like crazy, sold about 3,000 copies of that, and that helped them fund making their debut album, Fight with Tools, which Handlebars is on both the EP and Fight with Tools. And then they started doing contests, and they won a contest at their local radio station that made the radio station start playing Handlebars in regular rotation when they won it. And that started to get the attention of record labels because they're like, who is this random group out of Colorado that are like putting in the work essentially? And they got signed, and immediately like they're playing all these festivals where they're opening up for all these bands. And I wrote down a list of the bands in my notes: Metallica, Apocalypta, Chiodos, Bad Religion, Flogging Molly, Offspring, Pennywise, Rise Against, Dave Matthews Band, and John Mayer. And what I love about that list of artists is that all of those artists are dramatically different musically, but yet the Flobots make sense playing with almost every single one of them in a weird way. Like,
sure.
I think it really represents how eclectic their sound actually is.
Yeah, and I didn't know. I listened to the song, and of course the music video, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is like an animated, sort of like a computer animated thing. Kind of reminds me of The Sims or something, the way the animation is done. So you don't even see the band in the video, so I went and watched live videos of them because I was like, I don't know if this is just a guy and a DJ or if this is a band. I didn't know what I was getting into. And what I saw, the first video that came up was from a show that they played with Anti-Flag and Rise Against in Glasgow in 2009. I'm like, okay, this band tours with like punk rock bands. And then I saw, it's a bassist, guitarist, drummer, violinist, and 2 singers. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then as I learned,
they sound tight as shit live. I watched the exact same live video that you said that, like, that was because I was worried. I'd only listened to their recordings. So it's like, oh man, is this going to be one of those bands that like it sounds so good on the record that they're not able to even remotely replicate it live? And I was pleasantly surprised how good they seem live, actually.
Yeah, they're great. And they're also conscious, I guess the word is, or, political, but in a way of things that I agree with. They have songs about climate change, songs about immigration reform seems to be a big thing, a recurring theme in their songs. I think that's really cool. I wouldn't have thought this at first when I first heard Handlebars, but the more and more I got into them, in a certain way, they remind me of like a Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, no, I think that I think it's very telling that their second album, the lead single, featured vocals from Tim from Rise Against. Like I think it falls in that same category as like Rise Against is a band that I do think when I think of political minded bands, I do think of Rise Against, and I think of Bad Religion. Like, I think that that's where that makes sense. I do want to talk about Handlebars for a quick second, because there's a quote from Jamie that really sums up everything about this song in a couple sentences that I want to read, and I'm sure you probably found the same quote. But he said, "The idea of the song is that we have such incredible potential as human beings to be either destructive or creative. And it's tragic to me that we have this appetite for military innovation that seems to be endless. But when it comes to taking on a project like trying to end world hunger, it's seen as completely outlandish. It's not treated with any of the same seriousness, and at the same time, I knew that there were people at that very moment who were being bombed by our very own country, and I just found that very powerful." And you kind of see that. Like, I love the idea that this song, like, it starts off, the way that I heard someone break it down at one point, and this is how I've started to interpret it, is I see it as the very beginning, the "I can ride my bike with no handlebars, no handlebars." It's like a very little kid's thing to say, right? Like, it's like a little kid, like, showing off that he can do that, right? And like the first verse still feels like stuff that like a little kid would talk about. And I feel like the song is like this person who had all the potential in the world, but then they go off into this much darker area as they get older, and then the song ends with that refrain again, like you're going back into the mind of before any of that happened, when it was still just a kid innocently riding a bicycle and being excited.
Well, the way I interpreted it was to be about ambition, and also about the way that power and I guess fame, to a certain extent, power, money, all these things can corrupt you if you take the wrong path. I mean, each verse seems to be, the first verse, he's talking about things that he can do. Like, he can scratch a record. He can take apart the remote control and almost put it back together. Him and his friend made a comic book. Just these very basic things. Like you said, Matt, these are things that you might do as a kid, but that show some level of ambition. Maybe the remote control is like, yeah, he took it apart to see how it works, and he almost put it back together.
I feel like that line's so relatable, because I can't tell you how many times, like, not maybe fully taking apart the remote control, but even like something as simple as like taking off the back of the remote control too many times to like put in new batteries, and then after a while the little hook in the back of that little plate breaks, and then you can't ever fully get it back together after that point.
Yeah, but then by the time you get to the second verse, you see that the narrator of this song, the person in the first person role, you see that they're doing bigger things, making a living off a magazine, designing an engine that gets 64 miles to a gallon, make new antibiotics, do these things, which these are good things. It seems like now you, whether it be power or whatever you're getting at this point, you make a decision to go one way or the other when you're following your ambition. It's kind of like, are you going to go to the dark side or the light side here? And as we see in this song, by the third verse, things get very dark.
And I love this verse. I think that this third verse is so fucking good.
Basically, he's saying at this point, the narrator is in a role of power. He's a leader in one way or another. And I think this is worth reading. I can hand out 1 million vaccinations, or let them all die of exasperation, have them all healed of their lacerations, have them all killed by assassination. I can make anybody go to prison just because I don't like them, and I can do anything with no permission. I have it all under my command because I can guide a missile by satellite, and I can hit a target through a telescope, and I can end the planet in a holocaust, which is the refrain before you hit this sort of like, this is the climax of the song. And then, like you said, Matt, it ends back with the "I can ride my bike with no handlebars." It goes back to,
it's an
to the
eerie
very calm
song when you read the lyrics, man.
It seems to me like kind of like a dream. Like, this person is like this ambition and power and corruption. And it's kind of like the end reminds me of like waking up. And it's like, okay, I'm back to riding my bike with no handlebars by the end.
Hi, this is Krista Makes, host of Krista Makes a Podcast. The theme of the podcast is songwriting. Each week, my musical guest picks a defining song from their career to discuss, critique, and analyze during the show. So please join me for some fun and insight into some of the greatest songs ever written and recorded. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.
Hi listeners, I'm Carolina.
And I'm Tessa, and together we are Femme Regard Podcast.
Femme. We are a show dedicated to educating and entertaining underdeveloped filmmakers and film enthusiasts alike.
We love sharing our experiences as filmmakers, what we've learned and what we've gone through.
And we love bringing on professional industry guests.
We want our listeners to learn from the best and get an honest account of the biz.
So come join the Femme Fam and give us a listen every Friday.
Streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including YouTube and our website, femregard.com, and of course, the Geekscape Network.
So I want to bring up the Logan Paul aspect of this too, because
yeah.
So Logan
Sure.
Paul just puts out a song called No Handlebars, which I'm not sure if you listened to it, but it is blatantly the song Handlebars by Flobots.
I mean, it's a parody, right? It's just a straight up parody of it.
So they tried to sue him. As far as I know, there hasn't been a result to that just yet. But one of the other things is that the lead singer of Flobots wrote a response track using the beat of Handlebars, just like shaming Logan Paul.
Now, normally I'm pretty conflict avoidant. Just ignore shit if it's just annoying. I don't write a diss track about Stranger Things episode 7. I just be like, that's disappointed. But recently I was just acquainted with a young man, maybe once fan of ours. Hey look, this guy's covering Handlebars. That's cool, what you saying is bars. Instead of my bike, he says your girl. Oh, that's really clever. Oh, it gets even better. Oh, naturally, these days it has to be thoroughly crafted to be risky fashionable. Oh yeah, you have to see this. His masterpiece is like a master thesis. In this project, he concocts a fascinating twist of logic. Describes a woman's body like it's just an object. Watch out, hold up. I think that's been done. Yeah, it's been done. Oh, maybe, yeah. I think that's been dumb. Yeah, I guess so. I won't hold it against him. Oh, really? Why not? Because he's just 21. Actually, he's 22. Oh, then that's disappointing. His name is Logan Paul. I don't listen to boy bands. No, man, all the kids love his stuff. You don't know him at all? What the fuck? This guy's got like 1 million followers. 12 million. Way more than all of yours. Probably has like $1 billion. Well, if you care so much, they call a lawyer.
You said back, he gonna fall off. Honey, did nobody in that video have booty like mine?
And there's one line in that song that might be one of my favorite lyrics someone has written in a long time, which was, just because you can't handle bars, you make the decision to mangle ours. And nice. I was like, dude, just the wordplay with handlebars in that is so fucking good.
We got to back up a second. For anyone who's listening, Logan Paul, most people know who Logan Paul is now. I don't know what I think of Logan Paul. Like, I somehow people let him get famous. I don't get it. I think he's very obnoxious, yet at the same time, I respect his hustle.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to be a boxer. Then he trains, becomes a boxer, boxes Floyd Mayweather, and kind of holds his own. It kind of seems staged, but it was the biggest cash grab ever. I watched it. It was the worst fight I've ever seen in my life. It was horrendous. Dude, he must have made, I don't know, $50 million from that.
He just did WrestleMania last week. Like, dude's just everywhere.
I like that he likes Pokemon, I guess, but he's also the same guy who went to the woods in Japan where people kill themselves and made a video like laughing with a guy hanging from a noose in the background. Like, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's a real piece of shit. But like, you can't help but sometimes watch something he's involved in. But the thing that's crazy, and I guess keep in mind, this is from over 10 years ago. Maybe Logan Paul has come a little bit past this. I doubt it. But he took a song like Handlebars, which has a real message, and it's done by a band who, once again, is conscious and like cares about things and is trying to make a point, took the song and made it into this misogynistic, idiotic thing about, I think, like, I don't know exactly what the words
like,
are.
I can ride my girls with no handlebars. So like, it doesn't even make sense.
It was like, it's something like, I can bang your chick on my handlebars or something. It's just, you took something artistic and great and made it so stupid.
Yeah.
And the complete opposite of what the band Flobots is all about. I think that, like, he obviously liked the song, but yeah, Flobots took exception to it, and rightfully so. It was the stupidest thing ever, and it's a real shame how many times the Logan Paul thing was viewed. It's complete trash.
Yeah. Well, but I think that also brings up a point. So, like, you're just to tie into stuff that's happening at the time that we're recording this. Obviously, this might be a little bit dated by the time the episode comes out, but people liking a song and having no clue what it's actually about seems to be a reoccurring theme every year in politics as well, where you've got people fighting about how, right now it's the whole, like, Twisted Sisters, We're Not Gonna Take It, as a song defending conservative values. Like,
people are so stupid. People are so stupid, dude. It's like, it's the same kind of thing as the people dancing around with Trump flags listening to Rage Against the Machine. Are you kidding me?
Or the amount of times that people have used Born in the USA as a political anthem, when it's like, the song's about how our country just left veterans to die in the middle of the streets penniless.
Yeah. I mean, you can't account for stupidity, especially American stupidity, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But something I do want to talk to you about, Matt, which I think this song, it touches on this theme, I think, in one way or another. Are humans inherently good or evil? Yeah. I took that away from this song as, like, the narrator of this song. I don't know if I'm wrong in that, but I don't think I'm too far off in thinking this song asks that question that's been asked so many times. Human beings, if left to their own devices, are we inherently good or evil?
Well, and I think another thing that it brings up, because we read most of the third verse, but we didn't read the part that leads right into it, which I think has a really key line in it, because I think, yes, it brings up the are people good or evil, but I mean, when he says me and my friends made a comic book, that's legit. At the time that this album had come out, they had made a comic book about, like, a fictional telling of the Flobots as superheroes. And if you watch, like, I think in the live video that we both watched, like, the guitarist is rocking, like, a Batman t-shirt and stuff. Like, it's clear that they're very conscious, but they're also, like, they're into, like, pop culture stuff, and they're knowledgeable in that stuff. And a thing that's brought up a lot in pop culture, it's a heavy conversation, is, like, does a villain know that they're a villain? And I think that the key line in this is when he says, like, my reach is global, my tower is secure, my cause is noble, but my power is pure. And it's like that line alone, like the my cause is noble, it's like in his mind, he's doing the right thing. Like, it's kind of the whole thing that comes up with the Avengers, where, like, people talk about the Thanos snap, where it's like, is he wrong, though? Like, is there a problem where it's like, hey, we're overpopulated and someone needs to do something about it, and I don't want to just go around and murdering things, so I'm just going to snap my fingers, and this will let fate decide who goes and who stays type situation. Like, that's a lot more clean cut than, say, like, a Hitler character that's just straight up like, I don't like these people, so I'm going to massacre them. Like, a villain who thinks they're on the right side is so much more dangerous and scary.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I'm sure that anybody you could look at. I think it's probably rare that this person that we view as evil thinks of themselves as that way. Right?
Exactly.
They probably always think they're doing something good in
100%.
one way or another. Yeah. So that's interesting. And once again, are humans inherently good or evil? It's probably a lot harder of a question than that. It depends on how you define good and evil, right?
And I think it's tough because are people good or evil is such a black and white question in a world where we always live in the gray, right? Like, I think that it's tough. But I do want to point out one of the other reasons why I still think that there's a possibility that even 5 years from now, this episode might be outdated of calling the Flobots a one-hit wonder, is that right now they're working on a new album. Like you said, they're on tour. But the other thing is that they're starting to get a pretty nice TikTok presence. They currently are at about 258,000 followers, which is nothing to complain about. And they've been doing a lot of cool stuff where during the pandemic, because I guess they all live close enough to each other and we're in the bubble together, they started just going on TikTok. They did a video on TikTok where he sang the first verse, and then he just let he sang the I Can Ride My Bike With No Handlebars part, and then he stopped, and he was letting TikTok rappers stitch together with that video and do their own freestyles over the beat. And there's some awesome videos you can find of people just like doing amazing freestyles over this beat. And that's like how you do it, right? Like the more people that use that, that's the more exposure to your sound that's getting put out there. That's more people who want to start checking out what this group is about. I think that they're smart in really using like TikTok as a way to expose people to their music and furthermore to their message ultimately, which, like you said, is very politically minded. Like,
sure,
there's not a lot of party jams in the Flobots back catalog.
Right. And whether or not they have another hit doesn't matter. They will have a following, a cult following, if nothing else. And the fact that one of their songs crossed over, that's great for them, and they can, use that to their advantage. But I think it's really cool when bands use their platform for good.
Yep.
Or to have a message. I mean, I've never really been in that position so much, either in a band that was big enough to make a difference, really, maybe small differences here and there, doing things to help out when you can, but like, or just not everybody in the band on the same exact page of an opinion of a certain thing. But I think I always really respect the bands that use that. I mean, it's cool. That White Flag Warrior song they did with Tim McElrath from Rise Against, I like that song.
Yeah.
And I think, very similar minded bands, I think that's really cool.
I think you're underselling yourself a little bit, though, because I think both you and I would say most of the people that we know who are podcasters that we know and respect, like maybe we don't have the global reach of even someone who's a minor success like the Flobots, but how many times have we used just what skills we have as musicians or as podcasters to like raise some money for a good cause or like raise awareness for like I think that we're doing it in our own small way, and we're reaching those small audiences, and that's something that you and I have talked about a million times, even on the I Want to Be Rich episode, where we said like, yeah, there's some lavish stuff that we want to get, but at the end of the day, we also want to just donate money to things that help people. Like,
sure. I just think it's pretty badass when I see, Rage Against the Machine, Anti-Flag, any of these bands that like are very outspoken about the things in the world. Like I'm always like, but it's also at the same time, it's not that I don't necessarily have songs about those those topics. So it's kind of just like, I don't know. Are people going to care what I say? I definitely have a big mouth on the internet, but that only goes so far.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Darkest Dark, but I don't see it being used for like a protest compilation or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe not.
not on the level that like killing in the name of sometimes makes its way into those videos. I want to talk about something that I did think was funny. So the song peaked at 37 on August 9th, 2008. And this is what it was sandwiched between. So the Flobots at 37, at 36, just above them, Song I Fucking Love, Paper Planes by MIA.
Oh yeah.
What a beat, what a good song. Right.
Not too far off in like being these rap mixed with sort of a strange, unique sound. Yeah, like I could see MIA and Flobots playing shows together. Absolutely.
100%. Now, follow that up with another person who seems to be very politically minded, but on the opposite side of the spectrum at 38, Kid Rock with All Summer Long.
Dude, why is it? I know someone's going to be able to tell me some example, but why is it that all like conservative-minded musicians absolutely fucking suck? Like, you would think once in a while they'd be like, oh, they're good, but no, it's just like all the worst. I mean, if somebody gonna say Ted Nugent is a good guitarist, like, yeah, he is a good guitarist, but like, I would never listen to his music. That might be the argument someone makes.
The only argument I could make that ties the Ted Nugent is that I still really think High Enough by Damn Yankees is a really good song, but that's about it.
But for the most part, like, imagine if you were like a right-wing person. What do you have Kid Rock and like terrible pop country songs about the United States. That's like what you have.
So I went down a rabbit hole yesterday because last night I was editing the Grateful Dead episode, and I was like, that episode made me really want to get more into the Grateful Dead. I have to say, Joey, side note, was such a good guest for that. So I'm on the Grateful Dead wiki page, and there's a tab for famous Deadheads, and there are a lot of conservative Deadheads. Like, it blew my mind. Like Tucker Carlson is a Deadhead. And I'm like, so then I went down this rabbit hole of reading articles about like why, like there's at least 3 different articles that are like, why do so many Deadheads support Trump? And it was like this interview with like how half of the Deadheads that are like 70 years old are like, the Dead was all about like our personal freedoms, and that's what Trump's representing. And then like there's the other half that are like, Jerry would be rolling in his fucking grave if you voted for Donald Trump. Like,
I can't imagine the Grateful Dead would be in a Trump. I think that brings it back to Handlebars. At some point, people have to make a decision, and they're going to make whatever. Yeah,
you justify your own decisions in your head.
Yes.
Is right. That's what it comes down to. I do want to talk about I want to know what you think about this top 10. I'm not going to go through all 10 of them, but I was like, these are all songs that I just am fine with. No, well, one of them I dislike because of the person, but the rest it's like, if it's on, it's on. I'm not like mad. But in the top 10, we had like that song Bleeding Love, the I keep bleeding, I keep bleeding for you.
Who is that?
Leona Lewis, I think it is.
Oh, yeah, Leona
Lewis.
Okay, yeah.
Lil Wayne was in 6th and 7th with A Million and or A Milli and Lollipop. Coldplay was on there with Viva La Vida, which I don't hate that song in the grand scheme of Coldplay.
Is that dun dun dun
yeah.
dun? Okay.
Yeah. I don't mind it. Rihanna was at 2 and 4 with Take a Bow and Disturbia.
Okay.
Kind of uncomfortable. Sandwiched in between Rihanna's 2 and 4 was Chris Brown, Forever, which is arguably the best Chris Brown song, but exclusively for the beat and the memories of TV shows making fun of that wedding video.
Well, yeah, I mean, The Office wedding. I mean, yeah.
And then
fuck Chris Brown, but that song is
it's undeniable. But you know what? I think I texted you about this over the summer. I was listening. I had my like my running mix on, and for some reason Forever was on there, and I was like, this song is great for all of the reasons that aren't Chris Brown. Like, that song is great for the actual production of the song. The verses and everything is garbage. And then the number 1 song in America, Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl, her first big single, before a nice like 10-year run of success for Katy Perry.
A lot of hits. And Flobots, once again, as has been the case on a lot of our episodes, calling Flobots even a one-hit wonder is a little bit of a stretch. If the highest they went to is number 37. So that could be one little strike against them, is this actually a hit? I guess it is.
I would argue that it is. But, Chris, I want to ask you this question since, I think it's pretty clear where I stand. Do you think that the Flobots brought the thunder, or were they a blunder?
I will give them the thunder. And I think what's important to note is that I think you could be right. They could have another hit, or they might just have a cult following. I think even calling this a hit is, in retrospect, they've been smart. They're on TikTok and making the song have a resurgence even now. It was big enough a hit that idiots on YouTube are doing misogynistic parodies of it. So there's a lot of charts aside. This song lived on and continues to live on. And I think the band seems really cool. I think what they're all about is really cool. I think they're, undeniably a thunder.
100%. I agree. I would put the Flobots in a similar bucket of a couple artists that we've talked about before, where it's like, hey, man, it feels like every time we put out an episode, somehow the artists hear it. So Flobots, if you're listening, like, legitimately, open door invitation. I would love to have any of you on here to talk music, because they just seem like our type of people based on the bands that they tour with and work with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Flobots, you're cool.
This is a reaction to the
This has been One Hit Thunder. One Hit Thunder is hosted by Chris Fafalios of the bands Punchline, Pack, and Another Cheetah, and produced by Matt Kelly of Geekscape.net. Underneath me, you're hearing a universal theme off the Punchline album Delightfully Pleased. Visit punchline.com for merch, tour dates, and news. Do you want to start a podcast? Then contact Chris and I at weknowpodcasting.com for how we can make your show sound as professional as possible. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app, and tune in next week for another episode of One Hit Thunder.
This is a reaction to an existential state, only a reflection throughout our sleepwalk days.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.
Hello out there. Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock NBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.